Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to see you again in today's news program. Here, we and you will share and interact with the latest news and hottest events that are of interest to the public at home and abroad. Details will be available shortly.
Despite still being a teenager, the daughter of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is increasingly seen as a potential successor. According to Independent, her recent trip to China with her father has further cemented her rising status in Pyongyang politics. According to sources, Kim Jong-un's daughter, named Kim Jo-a, is around 12 to 13 years old and looks like her mother, and her trip to China is her first appearance at an international diplomatic event. North Korean state media broadcast images of her walking behind her father and in front of Foreign Minister Chu Chun-hui as she got off the train in Beijing, clapping as embassy officials bowed to the father and daughter. She also stood close to her father during a reception for senior officials on the train. On January 11th, South Korea's National Intelligence Service, NIS, announced that this trip had cemented Kim Do-a's position as successor. According to North Sunwon lawmaker, the NIS believes that Kim brought his daughter along to give her international experience and officially confirm her position as successor. Another lawmaker, Lion Kuan, said the NIS stressed that North Korean state media has heavily featured her in mainstream news programs and newspapers, which are aimed at the domestic public. Notably, North Korean media has never announced her name, only calling her Kim Jong-un's most respected or hidden daughter. The name Jo-a comes from the revelation of former U.S. basketball star Dennis Rodman, who held leader Kim Jong-un's young daughter during a visit to Pyongyang in 2013. NS believes she was born in 2013. In addition, South Korean intelligence believes that Kim and his wife Ronzo have an older son and a third youngest child whose gender is unknown. Kim Do-a first appeared in public in November 2022 during the test launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile. North Korean media published a photo of Kim Do-a wearing a white coat and red shoes, holding her father's hand as she watched the rocket take off. Since then, her appearances have been carefully prepared, from the ceremony to launch a naval destroyer in April this year to major economic and cultural events such as the inauguration of a beach resort last month. According to the official assessment in 2024, the NIS identified Kim Do-a as a potential successor to Kim Dong based on a combination of public activities and special ceremonies for her. However, some outside experts say it is too early to confirm this because Kim Dong is still young and the power structure in North Korea is still dominated by men. In its latest report to the South Korean National Assembly, the NIS said that Kim's health is stable and his work schedule in China is going smoothly. Since its founding in 1948, North Korea has always been ruled by male leaders of the Kim family. Kim Il-sung's leadership was passed on to Kim Dong-yeon. Then Kim Jong-un took power at the end of 2011 after his father's death.
North Korean state media reported on September 13 that leader Kim Jong-un will announce a policy of developing nuclear weapons and conventional weapons in parallel at the upcoming Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea. The Korean Central News Agency, KCNA, said Kim made the statement during a visit to weapons research institutes on September 11 and 12. Previously, North Korea said it had approved the plan to hold the Congress at a plenary meeting of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea last month. However, it did not provide details. The last Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea took place in May 2021, during which Pyongyang announced a list of advanced weapons that leader Kim Jong pledged to develop, including military reconnaissance satellites and solid-fuel intercontinental ballistic missiles. Earlier on May 9, KCNA reported that leader Kim Jong-un had inspected a test of a solid-fuel engine for an intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM. According to KCNA, the country's rocket agency conducted a static test of a high-thrust solid-fuel engine using carbon fiber composite materials on May 8, with a maximum thrust of 1,971 knots. This was the ninth and final ground test of the engine in its development. Kim Jong-un oversaw the important test. The news agency quoted leader Kim Jong-un as saying that the new rocket engine signals a significant change in the expansion and consolidation of North Korea's strategic nuclear force.
September 12. South Korea's Ministry of National Defense said it has repatriated 30 remains of Chinese soldiers killed during the 1950 to 1953 Korean War. The remains, along with 267 personal belongings, were handed over to China at Incheon International Airport, the ministry said. Since 2014, South Korea has returned a total of 1,011 sets of remains of Chinese soldiers, including newly discovered remains from the South Korean military's excavation project of remains from the war. The ministry expressed hope that the repatriation of the remains of Chinese soldiers killed during the Korean War will contribute to strengthening friendly and cooperative relations between South Korea and China.
The South Korean military recently announced that the South Korean-U.S. joint military exercise Iron Maze will be held from May 15th to 19th at the U.S. Army's Cam Hamph base south of Seoul. This is a simulated exercise to counter North Korea's nuclear capabilities with the participation of the Joint General Staff and Strategic Command of the two countries' militaries. This is the third time this special exercise has been held. The first and second times were held in August 2024 and April 2025, respectively. The South Korean-U.S. joint military exercise plans to conduct Iron Maze in parallel with the large-scale joint exercise Freedom S between the U.S. military, the South Korean military, and the Japan Self-Defense Force, which will cover a wide range of areas such as maritime missile defense, air defense, combat aircraft, anti-submarine warfare, maritime interdiction, anti-piracy, cyber attacks, and search and rescue. This simulated exercise is conducted according to a scenario of coordination between the U.S. military's nuclear combat force and the ROK military's conventional combat force to enhance the U.S. military's extended deterrence capabilities, including nuclear deterrence. Considering the possibility of a response from Pyongyang, the U.S. ROK joint forces may not announce details of the exercise. For this reason, the previous two exercises were only made public at the last minute. On September 12th, speaking at a meeting with residents of Gangwon Province, located in the southern part of the DMZ separating the two Koreas, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung said the government will increase support for areas bordering North Korea to compensate for the people's losses and promote balanced growth in the region. President Lee said that Gangwon is the country's largest tourist destination but is suffering from restrictions due to long-standing tensions. He said the government will expand educational, cultural, and welfare facilities to improve living conditions in the region, while pursuing balanced national development. After the meeting, President Lee visited a frontline army unit in Hwacheon, about 118 kilometers northeast of the capital Seoul, and was briefed on the military's combat readiness. He was also visited by Defense Minister Aba Pak Tapsung at an observation post and a guard post just south of the demilitarized zone.
The South Korean government has announced that another round of a cash-based consumer voucher program will be rolled out later this month to stimulate private consumption. Under the program, 90% of South Koreans will be eligible for a cash handout of $100,000, about $72 per person in the form of a voucher, with applications open from October 22nd to October 31st. The move comes as the application period for the first round of support, which began on October 12th and was distributed to all citizens at a rate of $150,000, ends on October 12th. In the second round, about 2.48 million people in the high-net-worth households group will be excluded. Households with a property tax base of $1.2 billion or more last year and those with a financial income exceeding $20 million will not be eligible for the support. In addition, high-income earners will also not be eligible, including singles who have paid more than 220,000 won in national health insurance premiums in the month, Minister of the Interior Run Hung said. I hope the domestic consumption atmosphere revived by the first round of consumption coupons will continue to roll out more widely with the second round. As of midnight on November 12th, approximately 99% of the Korean population, equivalent to 50.05 million people, had applied for the first round of distribution, with a total value of 9.06 trillion. In addition to the 150 million won given to the entire population, the government also provides additional support for low-income households and single-parent households. Both rounds of support can be used until November 30th, after which the remaining balance will automatically expire. The South Korean government assessed that the first round of stimulus had a positive impact on consumption, citing the Consumer Confidence Index compiled by the Bank of Korea reaching 111.4 in August, the highest in more than 7 years.
Amid the growing threat of conflict, German Army Chief Alfin May said the country's military needs to add 100,000 active duty troops to its current force, or about 62,000 to meet NATO's target. In a dated letter to Chief of the General Staff Ken Brauer, quoted by the press, Bay stressed that the German military must be fully combat ready by 2020 and deliver the capabilities it has pledged to NATO by 2035. He said that with current troop levels, including 37,000 reservists, this target was not achievable. Germany has begun to increase its presence in Eastern Europe, including the deployment of a brigade of about 5,000 troops in Lviv and a naval patrol force in the Baltic Sea to counter the threat of undersea sabotage. May's proposed an increase of 45,000 active troops by 2029. He also suggested adding 45,000 troops by 2035 to meet the requirements of trench warfare, and 10,000 troops for territorial defense. The German Defense Ministry declined to comment on the document due to its confidential nature, but confirmed that NATO had adjusted its capability targets after the Russia-Ukraine conflict in 2022. According to initial estimates, Germany will need about 460,000 troops, including 260,000 active troops and 200,000 reservists. In June this year, Defense Minister Boris Victorius said Germany would need an additional 60,000 troops to meet the new requirements, bringing the total force to about 260,000. However, Germany has yet to reach its 203,000 troop target set in 2018, and is short about 20,000 soldiers. Compared to this figure,